Hey, adult toy collectors out there, or people on the internet curious to learn more about adult toy collectors. Well, we all know what an adult toy collector is, right? It is someone over the age of 18 who buys toys for themselves and displays them. Doesn't really matter what line, what product, it's just really about the display and collect play pattern, as opposed to when kids have toys and they play fantasy play and nurturing play and, well, what's called, you know, smash them together doinky doink play when you have two action figures. Well, while adult action figure collectors tend to be the butt of a lot of jokes in pop culture is mixing how awesome and happy this hobby makes us. But I've often professionally had to try to explain it, and usually I have to reference different pop culture movies. I'll say, oh, have you seen Big? Have you seen the Lego movie? Have you seen Big Bang Theory? 40-Year-Old Virgin? Something, help me out here. Usually between those, I'll hit on one of them, and that's how I kind of bring people professionally into that kind of discussion. And a lot of people are like, wait, you're an adult and you buy toys? Some of us display them. Some of us still play with them or keep them at easy access so we could have them for daily use. Others take them and put them in complicated displays, sometimes costing hundreds of dollars to build the display alone. I mean, for me, I just kind of put them on my shelf, but respect people who put them in those things. So what I'm curious about is pinpointing that exact moment that one becomes an adult collector from being a kid with toys. Is there a specific toy? And if so, is there that middle point between the two? And what I mean by that, well, I'm going to use myself as an example because I think it's a really interesting thing regarding the hobby. So, yep, here's me as a kid playing with toys, and then I grew up, and at 13, of course, I became a man, and this meant I was now an adult collector. Well, not quite. I pretty much had given up toys at this point and wasn't yet an adult collector until this toy came along. So, this Spawn toy was the very first toy I ever bought with the intent of just displaying it. I was not playing with it. I was not going to go bring it over to my friend's house and, have fights or whatever, doinky doink play as it's called in the industry. I was just going to put him on my shelf with his giant wooden club of woodness and his awesome cape with all the articulation and the chains and the whole, awesomeness that was this toy. It was so groundbreaking at the time. I bought it to display, and that was the difference. Then, a year or two later, Star Wars Power of the Force 2 came in, and, I was sucked in like like we all usually are. You can never say I'll just buy one. Now, I am an adult collector, and as a adult with a family and, bills to pay, I still do buy toys on occasion. And granted, I have a lot of what I want, but, new stuff does come out. I've also been very fortunate to have had a career making action figures, and I feel very blessed for that. But again, the fact that I focused my whole life on toys, and, so many of us have, pinpointing that moment and more so, why. So I've said this in a few other videos about my little story about the tattoo Ninja Turtle figure that my father made me put back at Target, telling me when I was about 12, 13, that I could either have the action figures or the blonde. Again, ironic because I married a blonde, but that's not important right now. The point is, that was my last toy as a kid. And then we had what I would call missing time. And this is exactly what I want to get into on this video because I find it really fascinating. And especially how this plays into adult collecting. So that kind of 91, 92 season. So this was, post bar mitzvah, pre-high school, when I'd given up toys in favor of, maybe appealing to, girls. But there was a lot of cool stuff happening at this time. If you were into, comics and toydom and nerddom, I mean, we had the X-Men animated series, we had the Batman animated series. Image Comics was, forming, if you will. It was like that whole big boom, between 90 and 92. This was also a really cool time for sort of what I call the third generation of superhero toys, which included, it was a sort of the first 90s toys, the Batman the Animated Series, and, well, likewise the X-Men figures that were then tied to the animated series, but launched just as an actual X-Men line. So it's interesting because this line and the line that spawned the X-Men line, which was the Marvel Superheroes line, X-Men kind of spawned off out of that. These were the first Marvel toys out at market pretty much since, the Mattel Secret Wars toys. And, I mean, if you will, they were the quote-unquote Marvel Legends of the time, and it's interesting how as each new brand broke off, like Iron Man and Avengers and Spider-Man, they sort of brought that family, but sometimes characters like Doctor Strange would just show up in a Spider-Man wave, as opposed to, having his own line. And other characters like Doctor Doom would show up first in Marvel Superheroes, but then later in the Fantastic Four spin-off line. So, yeah, you got, Fantastic Four villains that hadn't been there before, but at least it was a vehicle to get Doctor Doom out again. And I missed everything. I missed all of them. I got Cable. I got Cable, and I think I bought Strife. Those were the only two that I bought. And I feel like so much of my adult collection now is making up for lost time from those 2 years. So basically the 2 years that I didn't buy toys, between a child giving it up, no longer playing with it, and buying that Spawn toy and those Power of the Force 2 figures. So as I said, I missed out on all of the awesomeness that was Batman the Animated Series toys, except for this one. I did buy one. I bought Man-Bat, because I had to buy Man-Bat. I mean, anyone who owned this toy knows how amazing it is. Not only was it bigger than the other toys in the line, but I mean, that flapping arm feature and the string so you could hang him. I love this toy. I think this is one of the best toys ever made, honestly. And yeah, I'm so glad I still have it. But that was it. I missed out on them, and I so regretted it. I made up for that as an adult by tracking down every single toy and buying it on the aftermarket. And it was painful, but I felt great because I accomplished something I wanted to get in those 2 years, but I wasn't buying toys. With the Marvel figures, instead of rebuying the Toy Biz line, the 4-inch line, the 5-inch line, I just dove into Marvel Legends as kind of a replacement and have bought the family of characters that I love, like Spider-Man and his villains, and the shocker, 91, 92 X-Men, the characters that were out those 2 years when I wasn't collecting, that between time. And really the takeaway that I found from, editing this video and putting it together, writing it, was so interesting how that small period of time when I had walked away from toys, if you will, between Tattoo and the McFarlane Spawn figure, it's those years that I'm trying to make up. So much of my collection is about recreating those years and the toys that I missed out on, or, like with my Star Wars figures, being able to get all of the figures in the line, since I realized I only had like 30 of them. I thought I had a lot more. See, again, you become an adult and light is shined on a vintage line. So I think it's really interesting to zero in on that midpoint. Any of you out there have a midpoint? Is there a section, is there a time when you weren't collecting? And has that become the focus of your adult toy collection? I'm really curious to continue the conversation. Let me know in the comments below, and I'm really curious what your give up and back in figures are. If you like this video, please do share with others. It's most appreciated. It helps the channel a ton, and it feeds into YouTube's algorithm and all that. We all love feeding the algorithm. All hail the mighty algorithm.